Welcome to this special edition of Caregiver Crossing. We are so glad that you are joining us here. And we have something very special we want to talk about. It specifically about today, but really every day. And so we are your hosts. I'm Tina McIntosh.
And I'm Candace Hattabaugh.
And on the phone with us, we have Laura Forbes. And Laura is the communications director with the Alzheimer's Association, the Greater Indiana chapter. And first of all, Laura, thank you for taking the time to be with us. We know this is, we're talking about Alzheimer's Association, the great work you do, the big need, and the longest day, which is June 21st. And so it's a lot. So thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So I know the number is growing, and I don't know exactly what it is, but how many, millions of Americans are living with, in particular, Alzheimer's disease?
Yeah, right now about 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease. And as you mentioned, that number is only expected to grow as the population ages. That includes about 110,000 Hoosiers who are living with the disease. So it's a serious impact and a growing one.
Man, if we would just stop and think about that number and how important it is that we get a grip on Alzheimer's and other dementias, like that's just Alzheimer's disease. 6 million Americans living with Alzheimer's disease. That's just Alzheimer's. That's just the people who have been tested and diagnosed with the disease. I wonder how many more millions are walking around with early onset. And it's so important to get a diagnosis early nowadays. Is that still true?
Absolutely. And that's a really good point. Diagnosis has always been important. Early diagnosis really provides so many benefits. It helps folks get more time to plan for the future, for their care, put their financial and legal affairs in order, really. But that they don't work unless folks are diagnosed early. So we really encourage folks to learn about the signs and symptoms of the disease and speak with their physicians if they are noticing any changes.
Laura, excuse me, I've been these allergies today. Laura, women, Black Americans, and Hispanic Americans are disproportionately affected by the disease. Do we know why that is? Why there's such a big gap there?
Well, the Alzheimer's Association is involved in research to better understand that question because it is an important one. We do know that, there are a lot of health disparities that may, affect folks in terms of many other conditions that also, affect Alzheimer's. So we like to say what's good for the heart is good for the brain. The reverse of that is true as well. So things like high blood pressure, diabetes can take a toll on the heart. We're learning that they can also take a toll on the brain. So if that has a greater impact on certain populations, that means that they're going to be more affected by Alzheimer's. And, when it comes to women and the effects that this disease has on women, more Americans who are living with the disease are women. So it's disproportionate in terms of those who are living with the disease, but also caregivers are much more likely to be women. So, it affects women both of those ways.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the caregivers for a minute. Obviously, this is Caregiver Crossing, and we spend a lot of time talking about empowerment, education, and just a general community for caregivers. That's so important. And so I know that there is 11 million Americans who provide unpaid care for people with dementia. And so that includes about 250,000 people in the state of Indiana alone. And it is outrageous. And so while the Alzheimer's Association does this incredible job, I think you're the world's largest nonprofit funder of Alzheimer's research, you also do things for the family unit. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. That is so important. Our ultimate goal is to end this disease. But in the meantime, we know that people who are affected by it need support, and no one should go through this journey alone. So we offer education programs So these can be, general awareness of the disease, of the 10 warning signs and that type of thing, all the way up to learning how to communicate with the person with the disease as the disease progresses. So eventually, the person will lose the ability to use language, but they may communicate in other ways through their body language and that type of thing. So we have education programs about that. We offer caregiver support groups, which are a huge lifeline to caregivers. They give people an outlet to talk about what they're going through with folks who are on a similar journey. And then we have a 24/7 helpline that is available at alz.org. And that is just an incredible resource. It is truly available around the clock, 365 days a year. And it is free of charge, so that, if you're having any sort of a crisis situation, or if you just need information, we like to say you don't have to stare at the ceiling at 2:00 in the morning. You can call our helpline and get immediate support.
Yes. And you mentioned the 10 signs, which you can find on the Alzheimer's website at alz.org/10, the number 10, signs, plural. So alz.org
Yes.
/10 signs. I want to talk about this for a minute, Laura, because I have a dear friend, and she came to me because I've worked at Joy's house for a quarter of a century, and she had questions about her parents. They're both in their 80s, mid 80s, so there's some natural decline with their cognitive health, some signs of dementia. Dad seems to be maybe diagnosable at this point, so I suggested she see a geriatric specialist. And I said, your mom seems great. And then she told me a story about mom and dad dropping her off someplace. And when they got home, they called her and said, "Why do we have your car?" And neither one of them remembered dropping her off. And I said, that's not normal aging right there. I mean, they spent a long time trying to figure it out. And it wasn't that they said, "Oh, where did we drop you off? Can't remember." They literally did not remember the last hour. And so is that, in your opinion, normal aging, or might there be an issue? And there are other signs too, but what would you suggest to her if this was your friend calling?
Yeah, I would suggest the same thing that you did, and say, they really should talk to their physician about what they're experiencing. Certainly some of the signs and symptoms that are associated with dementia can be caused by something else. But if it is dementia, it's important to learn that as soon as possible. And that is one of the things that I think, is the most challenging for people to sort of differentiate. Well, what is normal aging versus something that, we need to be concerned about? And we always say, memory loss that interferes with daily life is the thing to look out for. Certainly it is, normal to experience cognitive decline, as we age. But the scenario that you mentioned sounds a lot like what we hear of folks that, they've been going to the same grocery store for 20 years, and then they're going to pick up some bread and they get lost on the way there. Or we hear folks, that come up to an intersection and come to a four-way stop, and then they don't know what to do next.
Yes.
Those are the kinds of symptoms that we hear about often. So definitely important to speak with a physician and see what's going on.
And tell me if I'm right or wrong about this, but I worry less about the people who say, "Oh, I can't remember that word. Oh, hold on. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't get it right now. It'll come to me." And then a few minutes later, they say, "I still can't remember that word. That's driving me crazy." I worry less about them and more about the people who can't remember the word and then don't remember that they didn't remember the word. Is that fair or not fair?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it certainly can depend on sort of how often those things are happening. One of the signs can be losing the ability to find the right word. Of course, that happens to all of us, though,
Yes.
right? And so, that's very common. But if it's happening more and more often, and it's starting to really interfere with the ability to have conversations, I would think that would be something to also, speak with a physician about.
Laura Forbes is the communications director with the Alzheimer's Association of Greater Indiana chapter. Laura, today is the longest day, the summer solstice. Why did the Alzheimer's Association choose today to recognize and bring awareness to Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so we like to say that the day with the most light is the day we fight. So that is really the inspiration for the longest day being one of our top fundraising events. And it's such a great event because folks can participate in any way that they like. So if they want to, have a backyard barbecue, or if they paint and they want to, use their painting skills, we have a lot of, golf and pickleball, whatever people are passionate about, they can turn it into a fundraiser. They can do that all year long, but it's really inspired by the longest day, and that's when we see most of those fundraising events taking place. And it's a great way to raise awareness as well, not only of the disease, but of the Alzheimer's Association and the resources that we provide.
All right, Laura, thank you so much for joining us. For more information on the longest day and all of the wonderful things that the Alzheimer's Association has going on, how can people find you?
Yeah, they can visit us at alz.org, alz.org/TLD for the longest day. But alz.org is the stopping point for everything, whether you want to get involved, raise funds, become a volunteer. We're always looking for volunteers. Or if you need support, that is the place to go for all of that information.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, because today has the most light and today is the day that we fight, collectively, the Alzheimer's Association, I feel confident, will take you on their team any day of the year, whether that's donations or you're having a fundraiser of your own, or you want to join them in some of the events and fundraising that they're doing around our community and the good work in our state. Laura, did I say that right?
Absolutely right. Absolutely. Anytime we are, always needing support in so many ways. We can't do this alone. And so we really appreciate all of our supporters who are helping us out in so many ways.
Well, Laura Forbes and our friend Natalie Sutton, who's at the helm there, and all of you who are doing work with and for the Alzheimer's Association, the Greater Indiana chapter, we thank you. And we hope you have a beautifully successful and touching longest day today. Thanks for being here, Laura.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
You too.
Learn more about the wonderful work that the Alzheimer's Association is doing by visiting alz.org, and learn more about the longest day by visiting alz.org/TLD. Okay, that'll do it for this special episode of Caregiver Crossing. You can hear past episodes and learn so much more about the show by visiting caregivercrossingradio.org.